Hello everyone and welcome back to the Paul Show. My name is Paul, and before we get started, I just wanted to say that I'm just going to talk about some of the things that are my thoughts, my opinions on matters, different current events, everything that's going on. Now, of course, you are more than welcome to participate in the conversation, the thought experiments, anything like that down in the comments section below. If you do like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out and watching the whole thing. Now today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about cryptocurrencies. I briefly mentioned that in one of my previous videos. If you haven't watched it, make sure you go and check that out. To summarize what I was talking about in the previous video, it's roughly that a civil war and something that could aid in the advancement of a civil war coming our way is the fact that cryptocurrencies do not unite us. They can actually continuously divide us because people will use all different types of cryptocurrencies. We don't have the dollar bill uniting us when we can use other methods of currency. Right? Now, for the most part, that previous topic in that previous video, it was just a thought experiment. There's a 30% chance of a civil war, but I was just kind of playing around with the idea of the things that could be separating us more and more and uniting us less and less. So now in this video, I want to talk a little bit more about cryptocurrencies, some of the scary things that are involved with them, some of my thoughts on the idea of cryptocurrencies, and just to kind of have a fun conversation about them. Now, the number one scary thing about cryptocurrencies, it's the volatility. We recently just saw the cryptocurrency market lose millions upon millions of dollars, massive percent changes in the currencies just this other week. Now, if you were trading option contracts or anything like that, could be pretty understandable to have that level of volatility, but we are dealing with currencies, right? So there's this massive volatility involved in these currencies because everything is speculative. In case you don't know what volatility is when it comes to currencies or the stock market, it means that there's very large movements up and down. Just over the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of upward movement with some pretty big pullbacks on the cryptocurrency market. I personally know someone that invested $50 into Doge Coin a few years ago, and that $50 ended up turning into thousands upon thousands of dollars. That is a very excellent return on your money. And I'll be totally honest, I have a massive missed opportunity cost involved with Dogecoin because around that same time period, I had about $6,000 to $7,000 invested into Dogecoin. So, needless to say, if I had kept that money in there, I would not be sitting here making a YouTube video with you guys right now. I would probably be relaxing on a beach somewhere. I really don't let my missed opportunity costs affect me that much, so let's change the subject to a little bit more back to the topic of the volatility when it comes to the cryptocurrency market. The biggest thing is that we've seen this massive movement upwards over the last few years. Just because we've seen this pattern going up and up and up, it doesn't mean that we can't have a massive, humongous pullback when it comes to cryptocurrency markets. Volatility works both ways, both up and down. One of the main reasons why we haven't seen a massive pullback, or one that would stagger the entire cryptocurrency market, is because people still believe that there is value inside of the technology. Now, I'm definitely not going to argue against it. The technology is absolutely amazingly impressive. However, who's to say that the governments can't just start to utilize all of this technology and all of these cryptocurrencies really don't have any use anymore? Which that's what a lot of the governments around the world are starting to apply, are starting to think that we really need to do something about these cryptocurrencies, right? Because they have a circulation of currency inside of their countries that they can't really monitor. Now, does this level of volatility really scare me away from the cryptocurrencies? Absolutely not. I still kind of enjoy playing around with them, but I need to be very, very safe, and I would recommend that you be very, very safe as well. I'll preface this by saying that this is not financial advice. You do whatever you want to do, but for the most part, never invest more than what you can lose. Please do not do that. In this last pullback that we saw on the cryptocurrency markets, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of accounts got blown out of the water that were leveraged on margin, right? So that's where they're borrowing money and they're putting it into these cryptocurrencies, and they lost everything. Volatility might not scare you away from cryptocurrencies, and it might not be that scary if you're conditioned to that level of volatility when it comes to investments, but if you are going to be doing that, make sure you treat it like it's gambling, right? For the most part, if you're not really patiently waiting, or that you don't have a strategy involved, that's what you're doing. You're just gambling. Now on to my second scary thought when it comes to cryptocurrencies that I want to let you guys know about. And what that is the involvement of the CIA early on in the development of cryptocurrencies. Over the last couple of weeks, there have been multiple news articles that have said that the CIA was participating and actively kind of involved with the cryptocurrencies since almost the near beginning of them. Now that should scare a lot of people. People really need to think about that because it's supposed to be a decentralized currency system. So why is a centralized government agency involved in the birth of it, right? Or at least early on in the development. So why should the CIA involvement in the early ages of cryptocurrencies be concerning to people? Well, what are they planning? Why were they there? What were they doing? Were they trying to find people that were utilizing these currencies for criminal things, or were they actively participating in the distribution of these cryptocurrencies and making them so popular as to what they are today? Now, I know that sounds absolutely insane, but we've seen over the last, not quite 100 years, the CIA involved in all different types of things when it comes to drugs, sexually transmitted diseases, all different types of things, right there. So there's definitely a possibility. We can't say that it's a 0% chance that the CIA has been participating in the popularity of cryptocurrencies. Now, I want to move on to the last subject that's kind of scary when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And what that is, it's the end game or the end evolution of these cryptocurrencies, right? For the most part, we're all seeing this as a fun investment. A lot of people are gambling with cryptocurrencies. They're playing around with money and they're making tons and tons of money. But that is not the end game. The end game is not for this to be an investment at all. The end game of cryptocurrencies and decentralized financial services, such as all of the different cryptocurrencies out there, it's to provide an alternative to everything else that we've ever experienced when it comes to the banking and financial sector. In fact, the idea of centralized networks and centralized investors investing money into these cryptocurrencies should be sending up red flags to everybody when you're talking about something that's not supposed to be part of the centralized system. Now, throwing it back to earlier in the video when I was talking about the volatility involved in the cryptocurrencies. Now, when we have big, massive investment organizations taking your money, possibly, hopefully not your retirement money, and putting it into cryptocurrencies, even any type of percentage, that can have massive, massive impacts. Not to mention, these investment organizations have a lot of money involved in the stock market already, and now they are putting some of their money inside of the cryptocurrency market, which is extremely volatile, so things aren't good. That's not a good combination. What we could possibly see as we get closer and closer to cryptocurrencies taking over for our standard currencies is more and more financial destabilization, a lot more volatility on our regular markets. That is especially true if we have more and more financial firms taking money and investing them into the cryptocurrency markets. That's just not a really good combination, right? The closer we get to acceptance and adopting the cryptocurrency markets, the more unstable all of our other markets will tend to be. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually really like cryptocurrencies, but the idea of the end game getting closer and closer and more financial instability happening across the board is a little bit scary, right? In reality, cryptocurrencies are the first ever competition to ever exist for centralized banking, which is really cool to be alive in a time like that, but it also can be very scary because that's what has always been when it comes to society. Well, not always, right? I mean, there was a time before banks, but that was a really, really, really long time ago. But now we're talking about something that can compete with and basically makes banks obsolete. Along with banks becoming obsolete with a decentralized currency, it really does make you question on the importance of government and especially their importance when it comes to financial sectors, right? That's one thing that I find really incredibly ironic is the fact that Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, and Janet Yellen are against the cryptocurrency markets. Of course they would be. It's the only competition to ever exist, and it can possibly make their jobs completely obsolete. And to go off on a totally random subject related to Jerome Powell, I do find it incredibly odd that both the left and the right corporate media organizations are blaming Joe Biden for inflation when in reality it was the man named Jerome Powell. All of his actions over the last 3 years have directly led to the inflation rates that we're seeing right now. He hasn't liked listening to anybody, including the other members of the Federal Reserve. He wants to do what he wants to do, and now we're seeing inflation coming back at levels that we haven't seen since the 1980s, which is horrible. So those were my thoughts on cryptocurrency. Some of the ideas are a little bit scary, or they could be scary to you. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there, let you guys know what I think about them. In the end, I do still like them, even with all of these scary factors involved. For one, I will still be investing small amounts of money just for fun. No amount of money that I'm not afraid to lose will be put into the cryptocurrency markets because who knows what could happen tomorrow. Well, those are my thoughts on cryptocurrency and some of the things that do scare me, some of the things that are rolling around in my brain. Let me know what you guys think about that, right? If you agree or disagree, don't be afraid to comment. I'm definitely welcoming any types of conversations. That would be absolutely amazing, and the whole idea idea of this YouTube channel so you guys can participate in the conversation with me. That would be beautiful. Lastly, I just want to say one more time, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys have a beautiful night, and I greatly, greatly appreciate the fact that you have watched this video to the very end.